corrected the title of the group there. Maybe we should call it Srimad Bhagavatam reading. I don't know. Anyway, it's her group.
Yeah, I think I accidentally stopped the recording. Now I'm starting it again.
Okay.
So now we are good to go.
Okay.
So I can start with the prayers. Om Gyana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayat Nashtaprayeshu Abhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki.
All right. Did you want me to start reading?
Yes, Prabhu. That would be nice.
Okay. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 18, Verse 30. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Atasmin Bhagavan Vanya Prajanam Vritida Pita Nivasan Kalpayam Chakre.
Hare Krishna.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you again.
Okay, I'll read that again. Translation: to all the citizens of the state, King Pratu was as good as a father. Thus he was visibly engaged in giving them proper substance and proper employment for subsistence. After leveling the surface of the globe, he earmarked different places for residential quarters in as much as they were desirable. So this is interesting also, like as we read yesterday, King Pratu is actually an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he uh, superseded King Indra's service of breaking up the hills and mountains and flattening the earth, because he's in that position of being an incarnation of the Lord and a very pure. Well, he's a pure. Of course, he's pure. So he took up that service, and also because he's a king, he's showing by perfect example. So the Lord incarnates as King Pratu to show by example how a king should be. Just like when he descends as Lord Chaitanya, he's showing us how a devotee should be, the mood of a devotee. So the Lord is incarnating like this in various forms as an example. Ramachandra is also another example. So he takes these forms to show us the perfect example. And King Pratu was as good as a father for the citizens. So that's what a king should be, not like the leaders these days who are only interested in their own self interests, becoming politically powerful getting nice facilities because they're in that powerful position, lots of money, corruption, etc. They don't really think about the citizens. They're just thinking of their own selves, and they just say things and do things to get votes, to attract silly people to vote for them. So,
I had a
but
question.
an actual king, an actual king does not do that. He protects the population, and he was visibly engaged in giving them proper uh, subsistence and proper employment. So, after he leveled the surface of the globe, he earmarked different places for residential quarters. So that's a king. He says, look, I've made the surface of the globe flat for you. Here are the places that you should live. These are the best places to live. And I'm going to give you subsistence. I'm going to give you employment so you can support yourselves. But that's a king. That's a proper king. Okay. Do you want me to read the next verse?
So Ruchimataji has a question. She
Cool.
raised her hand.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Yeah, thanks for reading the verse. So my question is, what about the people who uh, are devotees? If they are like cheating and doing wrong things more than a normal person would do, like stealing from a helpless person, then like shouldn't their punishment be 10 times as much? Or we should just leave
Oh,
it to
yes.
God?
Sure.
Or we should
No,
just leave it to
absolutely.
God?
Well, the reaction for them is a lot greater because they have the knowledge. A devotee has the knowledge. So the reaction is a lot greater than a normal person
But many
who
times
doesn't
I
have the
don't see
knowledge.
any reaction to them, like, they are totally fine.
Yeah, well, that's for now, but reactions come in all different ways. It's not just physical. It can be they lose their Krishna consciousness, they stop chanting, uh, they start committing offenses towards devotees in their mind and verbally, etc. So reaction can come in many different ways. It's not necessarily a physical, outward, obvious thing. Um,
Well, what
well,
about what about you inform other devotees that they have done this wrong, and they are also not doing anything to help another devotee who might be in a lot of trouble and helpless, because Krishna says basically that you have to take action and
mm,
not just read the scriptures until and unless you take action. That's pointless of reading the scriptures. So if you tell other devotees this person is like doing wrong thing on me because I'm feeble, and they also don't do anything, they just don't like want to um want to like go through the hassle of uh, all that or take any responsibility, then what would be there, like like that is wrong also, or is it okay?
well, I mean, you have to look at specific cases, but if they're doing something wrong, they'll get reaction for it. If they're not performing their duty as a manager or someone who's responsible in a certain area, they will get reaction for that.
No, they
Definitely.
might not be the manager, but they are somebody who can do something about it without like
Yeah,
informing
someone.
everybody
Yes,
what's
that's what I
going
mean. Someone.
on, but they can inform the key persons, like the spiritual master or somebody, but they are not
Well,
taking
well, if
any
someone
action.
should, if someone has the capability to do something and they don't do it willingly, then yes, there is some reaction for that. Yes, that's the same in any situation. Um,
Okay.
but we just have to, some things seem like they shouldn't be happening. The thing is, we always have to understand that um, ultimately, not a blade of grass, nothing uh, happens in this world if it's not sanctioned in some way by the Lord. So we have to always try to keep that in mind also, that some things seem unfair and they are unfair, and something should be done. At the same time, we have to keep in mind that the Lord is controlling everything all the time, directly or indirectly. So it's a balancing act between, uh, you don't just sit back and do nothing. At the same time, you can do your duty and but not be attached to the results of that. So if someone tries to help someone but it doesn't work, then you can't be attached to that. You did your duty and you try to help. And if it didn't work out the way you thought it was going to work out, we're not in control. We're not the controllers. So, we just do our duty in the right consciousness in any situation. And, if things work out the way that we thought they were going to work out, usually we get attached to that, you know, we become joyous or
That
happy.
was a
And if it doesn't,
nice answer.
if it doesn't work, if it doesn't work out that way, we get sad or depressed or affected by that. So that's the thing. Ultimately, we need to keep that in mind that, we're not the controllers and the Lord is controlling everything, especially when we're trying to surrender. And for some reason, something hasn't worked out the way we thought it should work out. And we don't always understand that at the time, but later we might actually see that, oh, yeah, okay, lucky I didn't react to that because actually that was good for me. Or, you know, that's, later on contemplation, we can see that how the Lord's working, even if we can't see it at the time. And that's why it's very important that we stay Krishna conscious, because if we react to something in the mode of ignorance or the mode of passion, generally speaking, we're going to be we're implicating ourselves, And so we should always, Prabhupada always said a devotee is always a gentleman, and um, we're always trying to see how the Lord is working, and we try to remain detached from being uh, sort of controlling everything and thinking that this should have happened because I think it should have happened that way, and I did this, and this, and it didn't work out that way, and we just sort of get emotionally involved in all that. Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to the next verse. Thank you for the question.
I want to add something like
Okay. Sure.
I feel like in situations of abuse, like I think it's important like not to just bring things to someone who is just a friend or something. Sometimes it's important that the victim speaks up and it's brought to the proper authorities. Like sometimes the police has to get involved.
Mm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the victim has to be willing to speak, because if somebody else other than the victim goes around saying, oh, this person did this person did that, and it's not brought up to the proper authorities and dealt with in the proper way, then others can only help to a certain extent. So the victim has to be willing
So
to speak up.
I thought just a second, I thought when devotees are involved, one should never involve the authorities like the police or anything, because we are assuming that God isn't, Krishna is in control, and we should give them a chance to like rectify their mistakes by going to the proper authorities, the spiritual master, not the police in this case, because we are talking about devotees, not just ordinary person. That's the whole crux of Krishna consciousness. So yeah, I just wanted to make that point. Like if yes, if according to me, yes.
Yeah. That's right. I mean, it all depends on the situation, and sometimes the authorities do have to be involved. Prabhupada actually said that. You know, if a thief comes, a thief is a thief. If he's trying to steal something, we call the police, and he gets taken away. But it's all different. It's depends on individual situations, and you know. But will we move on to the next verse? Or do you
Sure,
like?
Prabhu.
Do you like? Okay. I think that's a good point. That sometimes you do have to involve the actual authorities, other than ISKCON. Okay. So the next verse, verse
So
31.
Richi Mataji, are you fine with?
I am not fine because it's again like a sensitive situation involving devotees, and it can spoil the reputation of the whole ISKCON, like So one, and also number two is that the victim might not be in a position to say anything because he has no other option to be in the place where they are there. So things are complicated, so it's not like all very simple, because that's why the person is a victim, because he is in a vulnerable position. Otherwise, why would he be a victim in the first place? So yeah, that is a very sensitive matter. Those 2 points are very important, that you can't like just you have to handle everything tactfully. And in the case of devotees, the spiritual master is more powerful than any police, and he can be also told like to keep things confidential, because we have to always think that we are devoted to, like any organization we are working in, if we are which also, like, that's what my personal thinking is, we also have to think about the as that as our home and as our place of worship. If we cannot think of that place as a place of reverence and of God, and about what will happen if devotees are like implicated that like that and spread in the public already, like um, then the whole reputation of the organization suffers. So one has to be tactful of like what is and in any ways, I always think that the spiritual master is more powerful than the police in case of devotees, because he can like even take away their um, initiation or whatever, knowing that this person has done wrong. So that will be more harmful to them in the long run than going to the police, because the police will just like, yes, that's not the right channel for devotees.
Okay. All right. Text 31. Translation. In this way, the king founded many types of villages, settlements, and towns, and built forts, residences for cow herdsmen, stables for the animals, places for the royal camps, mining places, agricultural towns, and mountain villages. So that we can see this is the ideal king here. He's organizing all these things. Will I just read the last verse of this chapter? Does someone else want to read this?
The screen is not clear on my end. I don't know what's going on.
It's text
Okay.
32.
Yeah. I'll just continue reading then? Or did someone else want to?
I can read.
Okay.
Thank you. Prak prathor iha naivashya pura gramadi kalpana yatha sukham vasanti sma tatra kutopya kutopyaha. Translation. Before the reign of King Prithu, there was no land arrangement in different cities, villages, pasturing grounds, etc. Everything was scattered, and everyone constructed his residential quarters according to his own convenience. However, from the time of King Prithu, plans were made for towns and villages for port. From this statement, it appears that town and city planning is not new, but had been coming down since the time of King Pratu. In India, we can see regular planning methods evident in very old cities. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there are many um, descriptions of such ancient cities. Even 5,000 years ago, Lord Krishna's capital, Dwarka, was well planned, and similar other cities, Mathura and Hastinapur, now New Delhi, were also well planned. Thus, the planning of cities and towns is not a modern innovation, but was existing in bygone ages. Thus ends,
Yeah, go
thus
ahead.
ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the fourth canto, 18th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Prithu Maharaj Milks the Earth Planet.
Thank you, Ruchi Mataji, for reading.
All right. What's the time? Okay. Did you want to read something, Leela Mataji, from the next chapter?
I'm good. Ruchi Mataji, you want to share something from what you read?
There's not much to like, I mean, explain in this. It is just written that the town and city planning is not new, but has been coming down since the time of King Prithu. So that means that basically, even in the olden times, we think technology was not there, but technology was actually there, because in many instances we see like how modern day technology was used at that time, like how weapons were so evolved that they even surpassed the nuclear weapons. There was the Brahmastra, and there was so many weapons. Also, like we see in the case of Kauravas, how they were um, conceived was actually they were in the form of the latest in vitro fertilization, because they were put into pot, because the thing was put into pots and kept for uh, 9 months or something like that. And then by the potency of Vyasadev, they assume the form of human beings. Many instances have come where even the sage Vishwamitra was going to set up a parallel universe, and he had started making it in the form of coconuts, which would actually make human beings come out of a tree uh, instead of from uh, having to wait 9 months, or it would just or having to trouble the mother. But on the request of Lord Vishnu, I think it was Lord Vishnu, I'm not sure whose request it was. At the request, he ceased, because it was said that multiple universe cannot exist, but he then also transferred that universe, and it still exists in the outer realm of the universe. It still exists. This parallel universe still exists as to date. So we realize that the potency of a sage who is righteous, a sage who is devoted to the Supreme Lord, a sage um, who observes um, the principle of doing good to others uh, without any selfish motive. They are such strong. They are such strong. What you call forces that the modern day technology cannot even come close to those forces which these sages had. So that was my thought on that.
Yeah, that's very true.
All right. You want to continue reading, Leader Mataji?
So usually what we do, Prabhu, is that we, when we begin the chapters, what we do is we just read all the translations for the chapters before we start reading the purports. And the reason why we do like that is sometimes the purports are so long, it's difficult to keep track of the storyline. So with that in view, we started doing this. Like whenever we begin a new chapter, we read the translations for all the verses.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But I won't be able to stay for too long because I have to go to the temple for service. But I have like 10 more minutes. I mean, until 5:40.
Okay.
So let's see.
All right.
There are 42 translations. So should we go ahead and read them?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So usually we read like 5 or 10. So since 3 of us are there, maybe we can all read like 10 each. So chapter 19, King Pritu's 100 horse sacrifices. Text 1. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, King Prithu initiated the performance of 100 horse sacrifices at the spot where river Saraswati flows towards the east. This piece of land is known as Brahmavarta and it is controlled by Swayambhuva Manu. Text 2. When the powerful Indra, the king of heaven, saw this, he considered the fact that King Prithu was going to exceed him in fruitive activities. Thus, Indra could not tolerate the great sacrificial ceremonies performed by King Prithu. 3. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, is present in everyone's heart as the Super Soul, and he is the proprietor of all planets and the enjoyer of the results of all sacrifices. He was personally present at the sacrifices made by King Prithu. 4. When Lord Vishnu appeared in the sacrificial arena, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and all the chief predominating personalities of each planet, as well as their followers, came with him. When he appeared on the scene, the residents of Gandharvaloka, the great sages, and the residents of Apsaraloka all praised him. 5. The Lord was accompanied by the residents of Siddhaloka and Vidyadharaloka, all the descendants of Diti and the demons and the Yakshas. He was also accompanied by his chief associates headed by Sunanda and Nanda. 6. Great devotees who were always engaged in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as well as the great sages named Kapila, Narada, Dattatreya, and the masters of mystic powers headed by Sanaka Kumara, all attended the great sacrifice with Lord Vishnu. 7. My dear Vidura, in that great sacrifice, the entire land came to be like the milk-producing Kamadhenu, and thus by the performance of Yajna, all daily necessities for life were supplied. 8. The flowing rivers supplied all kinds of tastes, sweet, pungent, sour, etc., and very big trees supplied fruit and honey in abundance. The cows, having eaten sufficient green grass, supplied profuse quantities of milk, curd, clarified butter, and similar other necessities. 9. King Prithu was presented with various gifts from general populace and predominating deities of all planets. The oceans and seas were full of valuable jewels and pearls, and the hills were full of chemicals and fertilizers. 4 kinds of edibles were produced profusely. 10. King Prithu was dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as Adhokshara. Because King Prithu performed so many sacrifices, he was superhumanly enhanced by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. King Prithu's opulence, however, could not be tolerated by the king of heaven, Indra, who tried to impede the progress of his opulence. So if someone else would like to read the next
I
10.
can read. If
Sure.
anybody else wants to read, it's fine too. Does anybody else want to read?
Go ahead, Ruchimataji. We will all get it done.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead,
When
please.
text 11, when Prithu Maharaj was performing the last horse sacrifice, Ashwamedh Yagna, King Indra, invisible to everyone, stole the horse intended for sacrifice. He did this because of his great envy of King Prithu. Text 12. When King Indra was taking away the horse, he dressed himself to appear as a liberated person. Actually, this dress was a form of cheating, for it falsely created an impression of religion. When Indra went into outer space in this way, the great sage Atri saw him and understood the whole situation. Text 13. When the son of King Prithu was informed by Atri of King Indra's trick, he immediately became very angry and followed Indra to kill him, calling, "Wait, wait." Text 14. King Indra was fraudulently dressed as a sannyasi, having knotted his hair on his head and smeared ashes all over his body. Upon seeing such dress, the son of King Prithu considered Indra a religious man and pious sannyasi. Therefore, he did not release his arrows. Text 15. When Atri Muni saw the son of King Prithu did not kill Indra, but returned deceived by him, Atri Muni again instructed him to kill the heavenly king because he thought that Indra had become the lowliest of all demigods due to his impending the execution of King Prithu's sacrifice. Text 16. Being thus informed, the grandson of King Vena immediately began to follow Indra, who was fleeing through the sky in great haste. He was very angry with him, and he chased him just as the king of the vultures chased Ravan. Text 17. When Indra saw the son of Prithu was chasing him, he immediately abandoned his false dress and left the horse. Indeed, he disappeared from that very spot, and the great hero, the son of Maharaj Prithu, returned the horse to his father's sacrificial arena. Text 18. My dear Lord Vidura, when the great sages observed the wonderful prowess of the son of King Prithu, they all agreed to give him the name Vijitaswa. Text 19. My dear Vidur, Indra, being the king of heaven and very powerful, immediately brought a dense darkness upon the sacrificial arena, covering the whole scene in this way. He again took away the horse, which was chained with golden shackles near the wooden instrument where animals were sacrificed. Text 20. The great sage Atri again pointed out to the son of King Prithu that Indra was fleeing through the sky. The great hero, the son of Prithu, chased him again. But when he saw that Indra was carrying in his hand a staff with a skull at the top and was again wearing the dress of the sannyasi, he still chose not to kill him. That's interesting. Yeah, it's very.
It sounds like your story.
Somehow I always feel that, yes, I get answers. That's what I was going to say. So thanks.
Okay. Shall I continue?
Yeah, you can continue, Prabhu, but I have to leave at this point. So you both can continue reading the rest of the chapter. Thank you so much.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
You
I can share my screen, by the way. So you don't have to leave it open if you don't want to.
Okay. I think that's a good idea. And also maybe I'll make you the host so you can end the
Oh, okay.
when you're done.
Sure.
I don't hear anything.
Yeah, I also don't hear anything. Perhaps he's muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, it seems like when I share my screen, it mutes me for some reason. Let me try again. Oh, I see why. Okay, this should work now. Okay, you can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Uh, Text 21. When the great sage Atri again gave directions, the son of King Prithvi became very angry and placed an arrow on his bow. Upon seeing this, King Indra immediately abandoned the false dress of a sannyas, giving up the horse, made himself invisible. And giving up the horse made himself invisible. 22. Then the great hero Vijatsas, Vijatsasva, Vijitasva, the son of King Pratu, again took the horse and returned to his father's sacrificial arena. Since that time, certain men with a poor fund of knowledge have adopted the dress of a false sannyasi. It was King Indra who introduced this. I think that's what I mentioned before in another class. Whatever different forms Indra assumed as a mendicant because of his desire to seize the horse were symbols of atheistic philosophy. In this way, King Indra, in order to steal the horse from King Pritu's sacrifice, adopted several orders of sannyas. Some sannyasis go naked and sometimes they wear red garments and pass under the name of kapalika. These are simply symbolic representations of their sinful activities. These so-called sannyasis are very much appreciated by sinful men because they are all godless atheists and very expert in putting forward arguments and reasons to support their case. We must know, however, that they are only passing as adherents of religion and are not so in fact. Unfortunately, bewildered persons accept them as religious, and being attracted to them, they spoil their life. Maharaj, Maharaj Pritu, who was celebrated as very powerful, immediately took up his bow and arrows and prepared to kill himself, to kill Indra himself, because Indra had introduced such irregular sannyas orders. 27. When the priests and all the others saw Maharaj Prithu very angry and prepared to kill Indra, they requested him, O great soul, do not kill him, for only sacrificial animals can be killed in the sacrifice. Such are the directions given by Shastra. Text 28. Dear King, Indra's powers are already reduced due to his attempt to impede the execution of your sacrifice. We shall call him by Vedic mantras, which were never before used, and certainly he will come. Thus, by the power of our mantra, we shall cast him into the fire because he is your enemy. 29. My dear Vidura, after giving the king his service, this advice, after giving the king this advice, the priests who had been engaged in performing the sacrifice called for Indra, the king of heaven, in a mood of great anger. When they were just ready to put the oblation in the fire, Lord Brahma appeared on the scene and forbade them to start the sacrifice. 30. Lord Brahma addressed them thus: My dear sacrificial performers, you cannot kill Indra, the king of heaven. It is not your duty. You should know that Indra is as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Indeed, he is one of the most powerful assistants of the Personality of Godhead. You are trying to satisfy all the demigods by the performance of this yajna, but you should know that all these demigods are but parts and parcels of Indra, the king of heaven. How then can you kill him in this great sacrifice? 31. In order to make trouble and impede the performance of King Pritu's great sacrifice, King Indra had has adopted some means that in the future will destroy the clear path of religious life. I draw your attention to this fact. If you oppose him any further, he will further misuse his power and introduce many other irreligious systems. 32. Let there be only 99 sacrificial performances for Maharaj Pratu. Lord Brahma concluded. Lord Brahma then turned towards Maharaj Pratu and informed him that since he was thoroughly aware of the path of liberation, what was the use in performing such sacrifices? 33. Lord Brahma continued, let there be good fortune to both of you, for you and King Indra are both part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore you should be not very angry with King Indra, who is non-different from you. 34. My dear King, do not be agitated and anxious because your sacrifices have not been properly executed due to the providential impediments. Kindly take my words with great respect. We should always remember that if something happens by providential arrangement, we should not be very sorry. The more we try to rectify such reversals, the more we enter into the darkest region of materialistic thought. 35. Lord Brahma continued, stop the performance of these sacrifices, for they have induced Indra to introduce so many religious aspects. You should know very well that even among the demigods there are many unwanted desires. 36. Just see how Indra, the king of heaven, was creating a disturbance in the midst of the sacrifice by stealing the sacrificial horse. These attractive sinful activities he has introduced will be carried out by the people in general. 37. O King Pratu, son of Vena, you are the part and parcel expansion of Lord Vishnu. Due to the mischievous activities of King Vena, religious principles were almost lost. At that opportune moment, you descended as the incarnation of Lord Vishnu. Indeed, for the protection of religious principles, you have appeared from the body of King Vena. 38. O protector of the people in general, please consider the purpose of your being incarnated by Lord Vishnu. The irreligious principles created by Indra are but mothers of so many unwanted religions. Please therefore stop these imitations immediately. 39. The great sage Maitreya continued, when King Pratu was thus advised by the supreme teacher Lord Brahma, he abandoned his eagerness to perform yajnas and with great affection concluded a peace with King Indra. 40. After this, Pratu Maharaj took his bath, which is customarily taken after the performance of a yajna, and received the benedictions and due blessings of the demigods, who were very pleased by his glorious activities. 41. With great respect, the original King Pratu offered all kinds of rewards to the Brahmanas present at the sacrifice. Since all these Brahmanas were very much satisfied, they gave their heartfelt blessings to the king. 42. All the great sages and Brahmanas said, O mighty king, by your invitation all classes of living entities have attended this assembly. They have come from Prithvi Loka and the heavenly planets, and great sages as well as common men have attended this meeting. Now all of them are very much satisfied by your dealings and your charity towards them. Okay, so I guess we can finish there.
Well, thanks a lot. It was a very nice, what you call, nice chapter. And the thing that particularly stuck me with my problem I was going through was that it said that whatever comes as an act of providence, one should not be too disturbed by it because it is a, and also like one thing you said in the reading was what stuck me, that nothing happens without the permission of the divine supreme lord, not even a um a leaf can move without the Supreme Personality's instructions. So maybe we should uh, think about that. Also, Prabhupada has said in his lectures that when you try to a certain extent, but if a thing is not going according to what you want it to, you should leave it at that, because it might be the divine will is not that is not allowing you to go towards that endeavor. So too much effort in any endeavor is not advised by Prabhupada.
Mm.
So thanks for all this realization. It helped me solve a little bit of a problem I was going through myself, or some kind of a
Okay,
dilemma. Thanks.
very nice. No problem. Thank you very much.
Thanks for
All,
reading.
okay, all glories to Srimad Bhagavatam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.